I think City are the most interesting team in the Premier League this season, to be perfectly honest, which is not something I've thought for a long, long time, because for so many years when they were so much better than everybody else, they were quite boring, to be honest. They won every game 5-0. It left me kind of emotionally quite cold, because you kind of think there's no jeopardy here. But this season, there are so many questions.
The Premier League season lies before us like fresh snow, 380 games crackling across 283 days. Oh, like the world's greatest soap opera about to be played out without scripts, live, with just the entire planet watching. In this show, first of two parts, my esteemed friend Mr. Rory Smith and I will break down the big questions for every single team. We'll give you all a sense of hope and a sense of existential dread, which is essentially why we watch. And as those of you watching along on YouTube will see, we're here in person in King's Cross, London. It's being taped as part of our quite extensive annual football holiday to Britain, week-long amazing race, made possible by our friends, at the mighty YETI. Thank you to them. And Raw, we are approaching this season of seasons, I'd like to say in the spirit of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Write it on your heart that every day is the best of the year. We want optimism, right, for people?
I think that's what we should be leaning into in the summer. The winter is for nervousness and dread.
Yeah, and maybe September for some of the teams.
It's Britain, Rog. Winter starts in September.
It's fair. And hope and its brother, Shattered Hope, possibly the greatest siblings in football outside of Jude and Joe Bellingham. For the purposes of this preview, we're going to separate the 20 teams into almost a Premier League of two, Raw. Let's go all NFL style on you. North and South, as if the league was just two giant conferences. I think I've ripped this idea directly from Todd Burley's Dream Life. Part 1. Let's begin with the best part, the North.
It's appropriate it starts in the North, Rog. That's where football began. It's where Marxism began. It's the right place to be.
We were both born. I thought that's where you're going. It's also the home of your defending champions, Liverpool Football Club. Let's start there, because last year they were almost silent in the transfer window. They brought in just a single Chiesa, but then proceeded under new bald dad Arne Slot to potently and quite calmly cruise to the title in such dominant style. Seemed to play the last month of the season on the lash in Ibiza while hangovering through Guard of Honour after Guard of Honour. Then a seismic off-season, one marked by the trauma of losing Diogo Jota in such painfully searing circumstances. Before we delve into the football, we've got to begin. I mean, we have to, with the humanity that hangs over the season. Almost unprecedented task. How to thrive, how to defend the title, and to mourn and grieve at the same time. We talked about this in the last show, Raw. They're about to kick off at Anfield for the first time in a locker room in which Diogo will not be. Yet his presence is going to hang over so heavily.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that will, I think, define Liverpool's season, that for all the other stuff that's happened this summer in terms of the recruitment, you have a group of players, a group of staff, a club, and a fan base that is in mourning. And we don't know what that will look like. It feels kind of unsatisfactory to say that, but you can't predict how people respond in those circumstances. The players themselves may not know how they're going to respond in those circumstances. I think they probably won't know. Liverpool have made it really obvious that they're going to kind of confront it publicly. They're wearing a patch on their shirts and on their anthem jackets. That's the official term for the tracksuits they warm up in, saying Forever 20. There will be a statue at Anfield at some point, or some kind of memorial made out of all the tributes that were laid for Jota by fans, by people in the city. In the days and weeks after his death. You know, it's something that Liverpool, as an institution, are going to kind of look in the eye as much as they can. But grief is a really private thing as well. And the players are going to have a long, difficult journey ahead of them. And I think, to put it in a football sense, which isn't the most important sense, because the most important sense is how they respond as people, how they feel as people, that process for them privately. But in a football sense, I think the great question around Liverpool is almost kind of, how do we judge them this season? You know, not necessarily what will they win, where will they finish. It's how do we respond to whatever it is that Liverpool do? How are we looking at them on both a professional level, because they are professional athletes, and on kind of a human one? And that's going to be really kind of difficult for everybody.
And how we even begin to analyse a bad game. Is it just a bad game? Is it more? I mean, what do we know? And it is unprecedented water for all of it. We've talked about it a lot, and yet not enough. week on week as we're all trying to process it. Liverpool have asked journalists early this season who are interviewing their players, their manager, to avoid asking directly about the Jota situation, which, to be candid, I understand. These are grieving human beings. They can set their reality as they need it. They're putting out their own statements. And I did admire Arne Slot's words, which he put out on the club's website. If we want to laugh, we laugh. If we want to cry, we're going to cry. If the players want to train, they can train. If they don't want to train, they cannot train. But be yourself. Don't think you have to be different than your emotions tell you. I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, as a coach, a man manager, knowing that he's having to man manage a situation which is unprecedented in the Premier League, thank God. But he's almost ceding control.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to be. It's a really kind of mature and sensitive and emotionally kind of available way of approaching it, because ultimately, I guess if you look at Slot, he is a football coach and he has his job is to get results and all that stuff. But he's also a manager of individuals in the sense that lots of people are managers of individuals in lots of different walks of life. And his job really is, at least in part of the season, to kind of make sure they're okay. That's the thing that matters the most. What will be difficult for all concerned is trying to remember that once like the white heat of battle starts, once we're in the thick of the season, not thinking, well, Jota died 6 months ago, they should be okay by now. That isn't how this works. Anyone who's been through this or something like it will know that is not how this works. You have to accept that, and we have to factor that in. It's a real test of kind of where we are as a culture. Just so much of what makes football great is that it's a chance to look ourselves in the mirror. It shows us who we are and where we are, what our attitudes to things are. And you've seen that in various kind of social causes in recent years. This is a test of how much we are serious about how much we talk about mental health, to be perfectly honest. If we are judging players in the middle of September for not being at their best 3 months after one of their
being off a step.
Yeah. Oh, he's a step short.
His pace is gone.
3 months after one of their best friends has died. I think that suggests that we are not necessarily living our values. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, again, as you say this, I'm just like, we're not going to live our values, because that is football. But ultimately, what is going to be, I mean, deeply complex, deeply emotional, you've nailed it, is we're about to see just a season of public ritual, collective mourning. But we also need to create space for the private grief, the private mourning, which is going to come. It's not something you just get over. It's not an injury that you come back from. You need a couple of games to play yourself back into football shape. It's going to be with this team all season. It's going to be with the fan base for a generation or longer. But to the football, and what an off-season this has been for Reds fans. $400 million spent by Fenway Sports Group. Massive, almost dream names incoming. Creative brain of Florian Wirtz, the flashing blade that is Hugo Ekitike, the thrust of Jeremy Frimpong, and the chaos that is Milos Kerkez. But a new frontline, Luis Diaz, is gone. Darwin Nunez, gone. Number 20, forever in our hearts. This is one of the biggest squad overhauls I've ever seen a defending champion experience, Raw. They even have young starlet 16-year-old Rio delivering rainbows of joy. But it's not just a slew of new players to bed into the Premier League. It's also a tactical evolution. When Arne Slot came on our show, we posted on YouTube over the weekend, he said Liverpool have no choice. If you're not evolving, you're going backwards in this modern Premier League. Style of play is going to be different, where I expect a lot more forward thrust. But is this overhaul too much change to manage all at once?
Well, the sense last season, I think, was a little bit that it was strange that Slot came in and looked at the squad and thought, I'll add Federico Chiesa, who is largely just a song. That's all Federico Chiesa is. He's just a chant. And other than that, I'm happy to work with Jurgen Klopp's last squad. It feels very much like this summer, they're building from a position of strength, which was always the way that Liverpool did things, the way that Manchester United in their kind of imperial phase did things. But it's also like this is Slot putting his stamp on this team. You know, you saw in the Community Shield a little bit of, okay, this feels slightly more, for want of a better word, not to stereotype, Dutch. It wasn't quite the same as last season. They're clearly going to try and do things differently, right down to the shape. So last season, they were still basically playing a 4-3-3. This season, Wirtz is playing as a 10. It's a 4-2-3-1, and they didn't have Alexis McAllister and Ryan Gravenberch there. There are going to be teething problems. There are going to be bits where they're not quite sure, where their brains are saying, we have done this for 5 years. Now we're being asked to do something new. Hang on, which bit am I meant to be doing? That will take time. And as much as there has been all this excitement around the players that Liverpool have signed, I think for a lot of fans in this situation, Liverpool fans be the same as for any other club, thinking, hang on, I like all these new players coming. This is exciting and interesting. I hope Alexander Isak comes too. But also thinking, hang on, it looks like these people don't know each other that well. Just football's about relationships, about partnerships, it's about bonds. The bonds take time to come together to kind of congeal. That's not the right word. But let's go with it, Rog. Liverpool aren't different to that. They're not exceptional. They're building from a position of strength, which is great. And long term, I think this will make them stronger. But maybe in the short term, there will be weaknesses and kinks to iron out.
It's going to be fascinating, particularly to see how Mo Salah evolves again. Mo's really soared when he's got a centre forward playing alongside him who is often a decoy or creates space for him to cut inside. Ekitike seems all of like one game to overreact to from a competitive perspective. Seems he's less the subservient facilitator, more like a focal point in his own right. Their chemistry is going to be fascinating to watch evolve. And talking about evolving chemistry, Manchester City, who we think of as that inevitable winning machine, that Death Star, Pep Guardiola, the avant-garde, influential, tactical brain that doesn't just win things, but he's influenced the entire football world. They are, and he is, but everything has its day. Watching City last season, a wounded beast roar, Rodri-less, a shadow of themselves. So many of the greats like Kevin De Bruyne probably kept on a season too long and then bolted on an attempt to transform the squad in the January. Really a build of builds, a bit like strapping on wings when you're mid-flight in heavy, heavy turbulence. We saw Pep face scraped, the anguish, the iconic figure, the master of control, suddenly looking very Natalie Imbruglia, cold and shame, lying naked on the floor. I didn't like it. His team lost back-to-back to Bournemouth, Brighton, Spurs, and was at Liverpool in one stretch in November. They stabilised. Spoiler alert, they came third. But that Club World Cup loss to Al Hilal, out went Kevin De Bruyne, pushed out, not by choice. And so many new signings, most notably dual KDB replacements. Are they? We don't know. We'll find out. $64 million Dutchman, Tierney Reinders from AC Milan, young French wonder, Ryan Cherki, so far been sharing space and time. Cherki, a flamboyant creator. Reinders, more buccaneering, both live wire energizers. Can they play together? Will they play together? Can Pep get the best out of them individually? Will City go as they go?
I think City are the most interesting team in the Premier League this season, to be perfectly honest, which is not something I've thought for a long, long time, because for so many years when they were so much better than everybody else, certainly better than everybody else apart from maybe Liverpool and Arsenal for a bit, they were quite boring, to be honest. They won every game 5-0. They never lost. There wasn't a weak point. They were perfect. And I think their fans loved it, obviously, but it left me kind of emotionally quite cold, because you kind of think there's no jeopardy here. There's no chance of you losing. Even Manchester United, when they were the dominant force, you under listeners, Manchester United used to be good.
It's true. It's like Hasselhoff used to once be a heartthrob.
We used to think David Hasselhoff was attractive.
Yeah.
But United had the common decency.
More recently than United have been a...
Similar timescales. Dominant in the 90s, David Hasselhoff and Manchester United. Both helped to topple the Berlin Wall. But United had the common decency to leave it late. The concept of Fergie time was because they kept being 1-0 down and then scoring 2 in injury time, which does suggest that the games were quite tight. Never tight with City. They were 4-0 up inside 20 minutes. But this season, there are so many questions. Can Guardiola tame Ryan Cherki and Ryan Aït-Nouri, who are these kind of really instinctive talents? Should we want Pep Guardiola to tame them? Maybe not. Will Reinders, who I love, one of the best players in Serie A the last couple of years, a really wonderful player to watch, really exciting. Will he be able to take that form to Manchester City, to the Premier League? What's the kind of qualitative step up there? I think is fascinating. But the main thing is, Pep Guardiola's never done this before. He's never had to rebuild from a position of weakness. He's only ever taken a team that's essentially perfect and recalibrated it so it's perfect in a different way. He's never had to look at a team and think, lots of the elements here aren't working. How do I make this click again? And I think the thing that's fascinating is City at their best had an aura. Teams went to the Etihad and knew they were losing. It was that classic kind of a 2-0 defeat is a good result type thing. That evaporated last season. Teams were going to the Etihad and thinking, we can get something here. And in the first bit of the Club World Cup, you sort of thought, okay, maybe City are getting back to something. But then Al Hilal went and beat them, and you thought, maybe that aura is harder to regain than it kind of looks like. It could be that City win their first 8 games and look imperious from October. But if there are a couple of missteps, then I think that we might find that City, as we knew them, the team that won every single game all of the time, maybe that version of City are gone.
Maybe they're buying the wrong people to bring in. If it's just about Aurora, they should be buying the Ibiza final boss and the kid on the end of the boat. Just big signings, change everything. But the bad news for City is Rodri suffered an injury setback, means he's going to be out until at least mid-September. So here's a big question for me. You've talked about the tactical challenge facing Pep Guardiola. There's also the human one. He's been giving out interviews in the pre-season to GQ about how we can see the end. And it will be the end for some time. The great phrase, I'm going to go and play with the cows, which seems like a line that's kind of ripped from The Godfather that had happened to Luca Brasi up to 15 years after this. Could this be Pep's last dance, Raw? I mean, it is bloody hard to be a legendary coach. It always has been, but never more than in modern football, the crucible of the pressure. Every single coach has a sell-by date. This is a manager, who was burnt out at Barcelona after, 4 years, 3 years at Bayern Munich. He's been at City now. This is his 10th season. We're going to find out, was last season just a blip or a dip? And how do we know the difference?
That's a great question. I think what makes it more complicated than anything is the fact that the other teams keep moving. It's not static. So Guardiola could improve City enormously this season with that magical Pep touch that makes him the best manager of his generation, maybe the best manager of all time, but they might still finish second because Arsenal might be better or Liverpool might be better or Manchester United might be better. It's unlikely, but it's possible. I think judging that will be impossible. My sense, I've got to admit, is that this will be his last season at City. I don't think he thought he'd do 10 years. I don't think anybody else thought he'd do 10 years. There was nothing that made it look like he might do 10 years. And I just wonder whether, in signing the contract last season, at the height of the collapse, the depth of the collapse, I suppose, it was a token of loyalty. It was saying, this is my responsibility, I'll get us out of this. I wonder whether that was designed partly with Jurgen Klopp in mind, that when Klopp left, it shocked everyone because he wasn't coming to the end of his contract. It was almost like he signed a 2-year deal so that he could leave in the middle of it. And I do wonder whether Guardiola has got something similar in mind. My guess would be if City win the league this season, which is enormously possible, certainly more possible than Manchester United, then I think that will be Guardiola out. If they win one of the major 2 trophies, I think that might be the point at which he says, okay, this is when I bow out.
I've run out of avant-garde denim designs. I've done all I can do in the game. I'm going to follow Grealish to Everton.
Maybe not that.
God, come on, Pep. We'll take you from City, who are hoping for an Oasis-style renaissance, to a club who, when it comes to iconic Manchester bands, have been more like The Fall. Manchester United, you're reigning Premier League Series champions. You'll never sing that, Raw. Last season was, I think the royal family used to call it an annus horribilis or something like that. Just 7 wins in 27 games. 15th place finish, their worst since that relegation 1973-1974 season. Unable to score. The football was insipid. New owners cost-cutting everywhere. A humiliation in its own right. We all empires must fall, we said over and over again. Then losing the Europa League final to Tottenham, which was really like watching Millhouse get beaten up by Frido Corleone. 18 league losses, so many that Ruben Amorim had to apologise to fans on the last day of the season. We'll talk about him in a minute. But compared to that, the off-season's almost been like a pleasant surprise. Every United fan I was talking to, they're like, how are you? Pleasantly surprised. The coins have been scraped together to bring in some real talent, almost to invest in Amorim's vision, kind of. 2 number 10s in Brian and Mbumo, and the shoot-on-sight spectacle snatcher, Mateus Cunha. And this week, hyped still rough diamond, big unit striker, Benjamin Sesko, tends to play quite beautifully with Bruno Fernandes, or they have in pre-season. But first, Raw, are the new players enough?
They are a distinct improvement. I think that's definitely true. I think Mbeumo is an excellent signing. I'm really, as a Liverpool fan, annoyed that Manchester United have signed him. I think he will do really well and he's a great character. Cunha, I'm less sure of. Cunha looked great for Wolves in patches, but it does make me think that Manchester United's scouting system might amount to watching Match of the Day. That's a slight worry for me. And Sesko, I think, will be fine, and I think has got a really high ceiling. I think he'll be an upgrade on Rasmus Højlund or Joshua Zirkzee. My worry with Sesko is that lots of other teams looked at him and didn't sign him. And that would make me think, okay, so United seem to have been kind of enticed into the battle for his signature because Newcastle wanted him, which isn't the best reason to sign a player. They will make Man United better. United will not be as bad as they were last season. But my big query, Rog, is I still don't think these players fit Amorim's system. I don't think you can get Bruno Fernandes, who is your captain and best player, in a team with Benjamin Sesko and Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo and Amad Diallo. I just don't think that can happen. You also still don't have any real kind of cover in midfield, especially given that Amorim doesn't seem to especially like Kobbie Mainoo. It still feels like a club that isn't quite joined up.
Yeah, and we've got to talk about the manager, the evangelist for his system, the only system, Ruben Amorim. United have stood by Ruben Amorim. I'm old enough to remember last season, mid-season, when he arrived with all the smiles and all the aura, and then quickly lost both. United lost 18 games last season. He tried always a policy of radical honesty through everyone and pretty well everything under the bus, almost dared the board at times to sack him. There were a lot of fans who were frustrated. I remember he came on our show and a lot of the comments were like, that lad does more interviews and he gets wins, he does. And it was fair. He spoke a lot. How does he prove he was worth all that trouble, Raw? What does success have to be this season for Manchester United?
I mean, the basic answer, and it sounds like an oversimplification, is they've got to win a lot more football matches. They have to improve drastically.
What is that, though? Top 6? Is that like, yes, progress? Does that have to be top 4? That's where we are. We're United. We're a Champions League team.
I suppose maybe, can you do it by a process of elimination? So if we rule out them winning the lead, which seems fair, if they qualified for the Champions League through the lead, that is definitely progress. If they make top 6, so they get back into Europe, yes, but is it enough progress? Not entirely sure. Is 7th progress? Not really for Manchester United. It's not enough progress to justify what they went through last season. So by that process of elimination, Rog, which I've just done in my head.
You're missing out the Premier League Series champions.
I mean, they have already won that.
Yeah, I mean, silverware.
But they also have the advantage, Rog, they're not in Europe. And that is a huge bonus for him, because not only does it mean that he can keep his players fitter and fresher, but there's far more training time. So I think in those circumstances, he has to be looking really top 6 at least. We shouldn't forget that it is Manchester United and that United's standards are supposed to be higher. It's not enough to say, I finished 9th this season. Bear with me again. United don't get to finish 15th.
What is that? What is that statement now? We band it around a lot. I'm hearing Talk Sport. I'm hearing Talk Radio. I'm hearing a lot of but this is Manchester United. What is Manchester United now? What does that even mean? Ultimately, there's the myth of who we are, and there's the who we are, and there's who we've been along the way. What does that even mean anymore? We've got to remember, this is Manchester United. In America, since the Premier League came on NBC in America in 2013, a large amount of the newer viewing audience, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds in America, only know Manchester United as this shambolic grey gardens talking about aspiration, self-sabotaging, and banging on about past kind of glories.
Are they the Cowboys?
Yeah, in many ways. We're this is. I mean, at a certain point, this is not who we are. Becomes exactly who you are. I just don't know when that is.
That's a really good point, and I think you're right that it would be helpful for Manchester United to reflect that, okay, things have gone sufficiently pear-shaped that we have to think differently as a club, that we can't say, well, 7th isn't good enough, Ruben, because we're Manchester United. We have to accept that this is a process.
Yes. It's like a bald man. I once had hair. This is not who I am. No, you're a bald man.
But I just wonder whether
You're a bald bastard.
Institutionally within clubs, I don't think that's how clubs think.
What?
I think clubs think about toupees and going to Turkey for hair transplants. I think that is what clubs do. You look across Europe, and if you look at the teams that are kind of comparable to Manchester United in terms of their history and their heft within their domestic settings, you have like AC Milan, who would regard themselves as being European royalty. And it's taken Milan years and years and years to understand that the landscape has shifted around them, that they're not the top of the tree anymore. They're not the apex predator. They have grasped it now, and they are being reborn by Christian Pulisic. Inter Milan,
our Lord and Saviour.
Similarly, I mean, I would say that Inter Milan aren't even on the same kind of broad global level as Manchester United historically. But Inter came out and their American owner said in the summer, or before the summer, we're going to start buying young players. And all the fans were like, well, no, you're not. We're Inter Milan. We are a destination. And you think, well, you need to look around a little bit more, lads. And I think United, it would be helpful if they could reset their expectations. But I don't think clubs can, Ron.
Oh my God, this podcast is genuinely bending my brain. Ultimately, we're all just screaming into the void, who am I? And the void screams back, but we're Manchester United. From Manchester United to the team that despises them more than pretty well any other, Leeds United. I'm so happy they're back in the Premier League. This singular culture, the fan culture, I love it. It's like half dream, half just straight talking piss and vinegar at any one time. Both of them living side by side in kind of melding tracks, fanatically followed. They return as last season's championship title winners on goal difference over Burnley, strengthened the squad with, some familiar Premier League character actors. I can't wait to watch Sean Longstaff play for Leeds United. Really a symbol of, I think, their overhaul or their tweak in this postseason in which they hope they can thwart relegation. It's the one word, physicality. I think they believe the 49ers ownership. They've looked at the data and they believe grit, strength, size, power, set pieces, good heading, really good heading in both sides of the ball will keep them up raw. First 7 signings of this summer for Leeds, average height 6'2". I mean, they're like a footballing equivalent of an NBA squad of bigs.
I think Leeds have looked at what happened to them last time in the Premier League, where physically they were lacking. I think they've looked at what happened in the Championship when they came up, when they scored a lot of goals but had a little bit of a soft core. And they've decided that the thing that they are lacking is, like you say, grit, experience. Just the other key stat with a lot of those signings is their age. They have not gone out and bought 21-year-olds. They are buying players who are 25, 26, 27, kind of peak years, ready to go, plug and play, make us tougher. And I think that's really smart. I have a vested interest in Leeds staying up, Rog. It's the closest Premier League ground to my house. I like that.
It's convenient.
It's easy to get to, despite the parking situation at Elland Road. And it's good, do you know what, to be honest, it's good for the area. You really notice what it means to a place to be in the Premier League when that place isn't necessarily in the Premier League all of the time. And to Leeds as a city, it's really meaningful to have a Premier League team. So I tend to see the best in Leeds. But I think that looking at their recruitment strategy, Longstaff is a great example of it. It's quite smart. You don't need to be too clever. You don't need to be buying players who have got kind of high ceilings and stuff. Just go and buy players who are already at their ceiling and know what they're doing.
It gives me great delight in life that the Fonz, Henry Winkler, is like a proper Leeds fan. It's so like wonderfully discordant with the essence of Leeds, yet it fits perfectly. They'll rely on Dutchman Joel Pirou to continue his goal machine ways from the Championship. I will say they have a slightly unhealthy dependence on Dan James's ability to consistently create in the Premier League. I'd just say Godspeed Leeds. Do it for my friend Larry Nance. Oh, and TJ McConnell. From one Northern power, hoping to reclaim their standing almost like House Stark, to another, Newcastle United. Oh, dark side on Tyneside. I'm old enough to remember last season, Raw, when they won the Carabao Cup. First domestic trophy since 1955. It was magnificent. They qualified for the Champions League too. All of that feels like it was honestly Tracy Chapman's happy memories of driving in a car, speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us and Eddie Howe's arm felt nice wrapped round my shoulder. Now, not a single player outside of Anthony Elanga and relegation lover Aaron Ramsdale want to head up north, which is crazy. Remember, they play in the Champions League, people. They got Saudi Arabian owners who are supposed to have profound underlying wealth. But Newcastle right now is kind of stacked in there alongside Chernobyl and I think Kabul in terms of desirable cities to play in. Player after player after player, almost mockingly are turning them down. The list is crazy. Liam Delap, João Pedro, Ekitike, Benjamin Set, more have kind of used them for leverage, then ditched them. Star striker Alexander Isak has almost become a prisoner of conscience. I don't like to be hyperbolic. Front office in disarray. Board said to be in chaos. Amanda Staveley, the executive who brokered the Saudi takeover, was ousted in a boardroom power struggle last summer. Eddie Howe left looking, so bereft. Raw, the Toon, they've got financial fair play problems, PSR challenges. But why is it such a bad summer? Is there a way this can end well? I guess I'm asking, are the Saudis still interested?
That is a genuine question I think you have to ask now, particularly because, and we touched on this the other day, that because of the Darwin Núñez deal, that is very clearly kind of strengthening, I presume coincidentally.
Yeah, it's not money laundering.
I'm absolutely saying that it's not money laundering.
Allegedly.
But it is weird that the same people who own Newcastle have given Liverpool some money so they can go and buy Newcastle's best player. That seems to be what's happened. And you'd have thought at some point someone at PIF, who own both Al Hilal, who bought Núñez, and Newcastle, would have said, hang on, do we really want Darwin Núñez this much? Does it have to be him? Why can't we go and get someone else? Does that work for
everybody? Can Everton just try and go in for Bruno Guimaraes, and then Saudi Arabia will come in and buy Mikalenko for 100 million and be like, go for it, lads?
Possibly.
I love this. This is amazing. I think we found the
loophole.
Yes.
To me,
wait till Todd Burley finds it. By the way,
I'm sure he's already there. To me, it shows why clubs are vulnerable when they're owned not only by nation states, effectively, but as part of multi-club ownership groups. It's not ideal. This is the bad side of it. Some of us who've been warning about it for a while might say, maybe this is what we were talking about. I think there's two big issues for Newcastle. One is you've touched on already, the front office. There is no one to get those deals done. It's why you have a sporting director. Newcastle don't have one.
It's just a fax machine just fumbling pages onto the floor.
Well, I presume the person
get a little paper catcher.
You need someone there manning the fax machine.
Yeah.
Eddie Howe is doing the deals. Eddie Howe is taking on that kind of traditional manager role, which is fine. It used to work really, really well. But it's not ideal when you're also trying to coach a team. And I think they've struggled because of that. It's not Eddie Howe's fault, but he's been the one kind of holding the baby effectively. And the other thing is that it seems to me there's a lack of strategic thinking. I get why Newcastle don't want to sell Alexander Isak. Totally understand it. It would be heartbreaking for the fans. It's a blow to their pride. It's a little bit of a reminder of where they are in the pecking order at the moment.
And they're kind of like, take any of the other players, just not our best one.
Why do you want to buy our best player? Why don't you take someone who's worse than him? At the same time, it solves an awful lot of problems for them.
Take a Longstaff.
We've got loads of long staffs.
Yes,
we'll do you a 2-for-1 deal.
Pick up a Longstaff.
Just on your way out.
I'll take the dad.
Do the self-checkout and take a Longstaff as a prize. No, I get why they don't want to sell Isak, but it solves their PSR problems, and it gives them that chance to say, we are now rebuilding this squad, this team, rather than keeping hold of one player. And I think there's a point at which their pride is making them make decisions in a way that is not that helpful. And the other thing is that you look at what they're doing in terms of strikers, they're very clearly now sort of 5th, 6th, 7th down the list. That's not a good idea either. You're getting players who you don't really want. We talked the other day, sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't do. There's a point at which you have to say, do you know what, we're not that committed to this player that we want to spend probably $50 million in fees and wages and whatever on someone we're not that sure about. Newcastle don't appear to be able to make that leap just yet, and that's dangerous.
Can't wait for Eddie Howe's press conference when Newcastle comes second at the end of the season. He just says, well, they do say the best deals are the ones you don't do, and we did a lot of them.
But this is the thing, that Newcastle last season, what made them great, especially in that kind of late winter, early spring period leading up to the Carabao Cup final, was their physicality, their intensity, their unity. That was what made that Newcastle side so kind of good. There's a risk that they've lost the unity, but they also need to kind of remember that having a purpose, having a point to prove is quite a powerful thing in football. And if the thing you're trying to prove is Alexander Isak really should want to be part of this team, whether he's freezing himself out or whether he's playing for somebody else, that's a way to bond the team together. There is a weapon in there somewhere.
No one wants to be here and we don't care. It's quite a variation. On
No one likes us. No one likes us, even us.
Even us. Yeah, we hate ourselves. Let's go! Staying in the ends and using the term North, admittedly, very liberally here. Let's head to Nottingham Forest.
That's the North.
Is it really the North?
Nottingham's the North.
That was very definitive.
Nottingham's definitely the North.
Is Aston Villa the North?
No.
Yeah, what's the dividing line, baby?
It's around Brian Clough Way.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Brian Clough Way. Is that the official, like the 49th parallel?
There's like military installations there. Or there will be one day, Rog.
DMZ lane.
Brian Clough Way is the road that leads from Nottingham to Derby, and from Derby to Nottingham.
You think of Nottingham as the North?
I think Nottingham is spiritually the North. People from Nottingham would say they are in the East Midlands, but I think that's the North.
Spiritually the North. My God. That's my house in New York City.
But to me, the north of England is all of it apart from the bit near the M25, which is the London Ring Road, the kind of road that runs around London. Everything else
is that sign that just says the North.
Everything else is spiritually the North. God. As soon as you can see the road signs for the North, you're in the North.
That is so funny. When you say to people in London, and I always say we're going up to London, and they always get very annoyed. They're like, No, you're going down to London. You get like genuinely. I don't know why I'm saying that. That's spiritually the North. God bless. I mean, I must say, Liverpool essentially doesn't think of itself as the North at all. It thinks of itself as just a magical kingdom that should almost be a principality, like Monaco or Monte Carlo in its own right.
And Newcastle ridiculously thinks of Leeds as the South.
That's so funny.
Well, you're not as far north as we are.
This, by the way, Americans who are listening, is like trying to work out whether Maryland is the South or not. It's cut from the same cloth kind of debate. But as I said, Nottingham Forest, a team that brought so much joy to a rollicking City ground last season with their pace and Chris Wood's season, who career dreams are made of potent-wise, but then lack of squad depth did them in. Nuno used just 23 players, the lowest by some stretch in the league, and they lost control of their extremities at the last, plummeted to 7th place still. Good enough to return them to Europe for the first time in 30 years. Good news is they held on to their Morgan Gibbs White, definitely not against his will. It was quite surreal to watch, to be honest. Bad is 1 goal, 0 wins in Forest 7 pre-season games so far. Raw, they soared so beautifully. It was almost Icarus-esque. The wax wings, the sun at the end. They were also heavily tipped for relegation before last season. So how will they all do while the world's watching? Yeah,
I wonder whether they might fall into a little bit of the version of the Newcastle trap, which is that you do really, really well. You surprise everybody. You qualify for Europe, in Forest case, the Europa League, by slightly less than Sporting means. And then you struggle the next season just because of the weight of fixtures. You can't overestimate how much more complicated it is to play twice a week than once a week. That is the thing that Forest will have to deal with in the Europa League rather than the Champions League, admittedly. They were within a whisker of the Champions League. They could have qualified for the Champions League on that final day, I think. And it's a disappointment that they didn't, because they deserved to over the course of the season. They were the story of the season. My worry is that it looks this summer a little bit like things might have stalled, gone a little bit stale. They've not refreshed quite as much as you'd want them to. Lost Anthony Elanga, which is more of a blow than maybe I think people are giving it credit for. They may well come again. They may well come late. They may well add more bodies.
James McAtee
in the next few weeks. They do like signing players, Nottingham Forest. But as things stand, I think it might be a season where they have to accept that the journey is Europe and the Premier League finishes 11th.
I would love Marinakis to come on the show. I've got so many questions. To Lancashire and JJ Watt's Burnley, as they're officially known, the Bene and Hots are back, lads. Let's delve into our new friends for this Premier League season. Knowing that, here's the bad news. For the past 2 seasons, 3 teams that came up from the Championship have gone straight back down. We're wondering whether newly promoted Burnley and Sunderland particularly can buck this trend. Burnley have just lost so many key players from last season. Their goalkeeper hero, James Trafford, CJ Egan-Riley, the quite electric Josh Brownhill. They're relying, ultimately, I think, speaking to Burnley fans, on their naivete last time around, the experience that got kicked into them during that Vincent Company kind of avant-garde, play out the back disaster of a season. Sunderland came up via the playoffs after 8 agonizing long years in the wilderness to have the tenacity, the spirit to be resummoned. I adore that city. It's a historic club, mad, passionate supporters. The transformation to get them back has been remarkable to witness. It's a really, truly grand old team of English football. They built through an emphasis on youth, academy grown talent. But after getting promoted, I think they spent 140 million in the transfer market, including the return of 32-year-old Arsenal cult hero Granit Xhaka for one last dance. But here's the stat both teams are dealing with, and it is incredible. 2023-24 season, this is Swiss Rambles data. Premier League clubs made $426 million on average. Championship clubs took in 54 million. That's the gulf they're trying to bridge. It's almost financial as much as a footballing challenge.
We're cheering for spreadsheets, Rog. That's what's happening. And ultimately, that's what kind of condemns the promoted teams to not almost certain relegation, but to a season in which they are going to battle relegation at the very least. Burnley and Sunderland will both be delighted to finish 17th. That's the cliche, but it's true. And it's because they're coming from so far back. Burnley, right, do have a little bit more experience.
Right.
Because they've been in the Premier League before, the core of the squad. They also have Scott Parker, who Burnley will try and stay up in a very different way this season. They tried to play their way out of trouble when they were here before. Didn't work, really didn't work. This season, they will be as defensively solid as they can be.
And Scott Parker also changed himself tactically. He's gone hair curtains from his last disastrous.
I don't know if you know this about Britain, Rog, but curtains are back.
They are?
Yeah.
Well, he pioneered them. It's not the Scott Parker that, just was derided for his management of Bournemouth.
No, he's gone away from
different
the kind of
one.
slick back thing.
That was a different time.
And curtains are now, there are 2 acceptable haircuts for young people in Britain, according to my nephew who's 16. They are curtains and what he refers to as broccoli head, which is sort of curly and forward. It's a weird thing. Anyway, Scott Parker's very much on trend there.
Yeah.
They will be defensively solid. They'll be hard to beat, Burnley.
Bold erasure, by the way.
The question... That's always in fashion.
Yeah, thank you, beautiful.
The question with Burnley is whether they will score enough goals to stay up. They've signed Armando Broja. You watched him for Everton last season.
Yeah.
You can answer that question for me, Rog. Sunderland, on the other hand, they were kind of the surprise package. There were 3 teams in the Championship last season who were very clearly better than all of the others. They were Leeds, Burnley, and not Sunderland. It was Sheffield United who felt like the other team that could go up. Sunderland needed a lot of work doing, and they've really committed to it. Xhaka is probably the most high-profile signing, but they've made 4 or 5 others that speak to an ambition to stay up that maybe is slightly a surprise. So I think Sunderland will give it a go. I think Sunderland will really try, and they might take a few teams by surprise.
Brohat, his time at Everton, really the memory he gave me, he's one of the few professional footballers who, when presented a chance, a gilt-edged chance, he had an uncanny ability to be able to tackle himself. As he pulled his foot back, he was as likely to kick his other plant leg as he was the ball, and it almost became like a surreal avant-garde performance. I love watching him, enjoy him, take care of him, revel in him. Quick question from the MIB Discord from Jack Grims. Raw, is Opta's predicted table complete quack? Jack is referring to the Opta simulation, which is much banded around pre-season, where I think they run 10,000 simulations of the league. Why just 10,000? I mean, what we do together when we're going to come out with our predictions at the end of this Raw, many, many more have gone in. They decided the 3 new teams, straight up, straight down. They actually have Sunderland a 34% chance of coming 20th and bottom.
So it's quite in a sense because, number one, it's made before the transfer window shut. So these teams can change. You don't know who they're going to sign.
Yeah.
If Sunderland
Grealish
go and sign Kylian Mbappe, then that'll probably make a difference. They won't, obviously. But, I always feel as though all predictions before September the 1st are not complete. And also, football has an amazing ability to come up with the 10,001st simulation. You don't know how the season will go. There are so many unknowns. And I say this as someone who is pro data, very much believes in the value of analytics and all that stuff, but you don't know how the new signings will settle. You don't know how teams' chemistry will change. You don't know what injuries teams pick up. Momentum and belief and confidence, these are all things that matter in football. And the predicted tables, I think, don't capture any of those things.
Talking about them. They've got us talking about them.
I wouldn't necessarily base my emotional state on the Opta predicted table.
I think Sunderland more likely to Kylian Mbappe. That would be amazing. And they're more likely to sign Taran Killam. I probably think he's Kylian Mbappe, but what do I know? I actually think a lot of fans of these three new teams are going to be baying really just to find a single club that is worse than them. I know my friend Larry Nance Jr., co-owner of Leeds, is like a shark looking for blood in the water for just any weaker team, which is a lovely segue to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Last season, Vitor Pereira took the points and then the pints and rescued the team after a quite brutal gauntlet of opening games. I think they had 1 point after the first 8 matches. This summer, they've had the heart of their team ripped out. Mateus Cunha, Ryan Aït-Nouri and Pablo Sarabia, all gone. Really the footballing equivalent of losing your hair. A lot of ball talk in this show, but that's, 31 direct contributions from the first 2 alone. God bless. They've gone out and brought themselves a wing back, David Moller Wolf from Alkmaar, the Wolf of Wall Street. That is a lot of faith, Raw, in nominative determinism. It's like Arsene Wenger coaching Arsenal or Everton signing a player named Deeply Mediocre.
The one player who I think Wolves should be excited about is John Arias, the guy they signed from Fluminense, who was probably the standout kind of surprise package of the Club World Cup. Is that fair to say? He was the one who from the South American teams really grabbed the eye, apart from maybe Esteban Willian at Chelsea. You looked at Arias and thought, okay, he's a player who's got something about him. He will excite them. But there's an undeniable sense of drift at Wolves. It does feel a bit like the club is not really kind of investing in replenishing its squad, that there's no real obvious kind of plan there. Wolves' approach to avoiding relegation appears to be really believing
edging
that the three teams, that the 3 teams who came up will go straight back down.
Larry Nance Jr., as he's listening to this, is like wearing a yellow suit, rubbing his hands together, hiding behind a tree and licking his lips. And talking of deeply mediocre, let's wrap up this first half NFC North preview with Everton. I'd say it's a magical time to be a Blue. It really is. We've had that energy of the farewell to Goodison Park, the grand old home, and we're going to head towards the brand new home, the Hill Dickinson. I wonder how we're going to come up with a nickname for that place. We'll never be able to do it, will we? We have dreamed, we have yearned, we have suffered. We have celebrated, and we're still alive. Just to some degree, more than alive. We stand here. I think this summer's pivotal. We're all new stadium, new energy, new owners, new front office, which is still bedding in. I think that a lot of the transfer problem has been just so many new pieces in that front office still gelling. And my highest hope, when I think about it, is that the big dick is going to be a chrysalis, like a caterpillar that we're kind of dragging ourselves in just. And then we're going to emerge as this stunning, soaring blue butterfly, like a blue morpho or whatever they are. Just iridescent cobalt wings, reclaiming the glory. I've seen it with my own eyes when I was a bloody kid. We won things, Raw. I do wonder whether we can return to that. However, I will say, I was chatting about this before we started podding. I did this live show with Everton Football Club in Manhattan, live on stage with a lot of the players and David Moyes. And I was trying to I was definitely quite effervescent. I was buzzing. The crowd was bonkers. They drank the place dry. It was a madness in there. And there was a heavy dose of reality. The 9 members of last season's squad have departed. There's been too few bodies coming in. We'll talk about one in a moment. But it's hard to, right now, be a team that doesn't offer European opportunities and sign talent. There's so many now that do. There's like 9 teams who offer European talent. To be one of the few that doesn't makes it bloody hard. And Moyes just leant to the microphone, kept saying we need 9 or 10 new signings as his veins bulge. Who am I to argue with you? And then there's that other level, new stadium. It's going to be amazing. But remember Arsenal, Thierry Henry said, I used to know where I was on the field because of the old clock at Highbury. That was gone. It took It took the players a long time to adjust to the new home. It took the fans at Arsenal a long time. Goodison Park was like a bear pit. Roy, it's going to take time for this new place to become that kind of feral fortress.
Yeah, completely. But at the same time, Goodison Park was a pressure as well. Just Goodison Park turned. And there were, certainly in those last few years, you could see players kind of wilt almost when Goodison wasn't happy. And I wonder whether maybe because it's a blank canvas for the fans, whether there's a chance to kind of change the vibe of the crowd a bit as well. That might be quite helpful to an extent. I'm a little bit more positive about Everton than you are, and apparently than David Moyes is, which is weird.
And God, when he said that, genuinely, it was like if Father Time had come on with a scythe and told me I was soon to die, I probably would have felt less chilled than when Moyes was screaming at me.
But you are right that if you think about, say, Sesko choosing Manchester United over Newcastle, that's a Newcastle who can offer the Champions League. How far down the pecking order
what Moyes said.
Would Everton be in the race for a player like that? Just probably quite a long way. And that is a problem because it means you're kind of trying to sign players who are, the players you really want are probably out of your reach. So you either have to be very clever and very quick to get deals done, which is hard with a new front office, or you end up with players you don't really want.
Or you get to welcome a Jack Grealish.
And that is not a bad thing in Everton's situation.
Can I just say, it's a magnificent bloody thing. I'm fairly disciplined. Fabrizio Romano has a show on our network. I work really hard to let him, Fabrizio, to the world and not to, annoy him, especially not in this transfer window when he works these crazy hours. This morning, I couldn't help but bothering like a child. I did at one point find myself texting him saying, Fabrizio, can you just here we go it, and then just make it real yourself? He told me it doesn't work like that, Ro.
It doesn't, unfortunately, although it does feel increasingly like it used to be that you wait for the club to announce it.
Yeah.
Now it kind of feels like you just wait for the here we go, and then people assume the deal is done. The things can still kind of go wrong at that stage.
Yeah, within an hour, I will say, here we go.
He obviously got onto Grealish's people and said, look, Rog wants it done. Let's just get it done. Let's just iron out the details.
Yeah.
I think Grealish is an incredible signing. And do you know what? He's a kind of...
So happy.
He's a totemic signing for Everton. He's the sort of signing that you can...
What's totemic? Is that like having sex with Sting?
Kind of.
Is that tantric?
And you have to wait a while for it. The
Up to 7 hours, apparently.
But the signing Grealish is a sign of ambition.
Now
obviously.
stress me out. Come on, I'm now looking.
But it's also a chance to say to prospective other signings, look what we've just done. Look who we've just got. This is how serious we are. So I think that the other players they've brought in, Dewsbury Hall, I think is a great signing. Tiana Barry from Villarreal is a great signing. But Grealish is a bit of a game changer.
Oh, he is, man. I've got to say, I'm so bloody happy. You've got me worried that it's not true, even though it's been here we go. But I think Jack Grealish at Everton is like, you think about a great comedian, a great comic actor, just playing a straight role. Like, I hope Everton are Grealish's Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. We are built to adore and love him, that he rides with us. His redemption, tying to our redemption, it could be the Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler. It could be his role of a lifetime.
I think he's better suited to that kind of situation. I think what Jack Grealish needs is a club that adores him, a team that is built around him. I think he's a big fish in a small pond kind of guy. Sorry for the small pond bit.
Yeah, I was like,
you don't like that, do you?
A small pond. I like the delusion. This is not who we are. Going back to our earlier point, this is not who we are. We are Everton Football Club. We are a small pond.
For the time being, but a small pond in it.
Fairly stagnant pond. We've got lily pads and just like...
It's a pretty pond. It's a small pond with a big dick.
Hey, bite your arm off. I'm in. This is, by the way, how we negotiated with Jack Grealish. You're a small pond with a big dick. Didn't that bite your arm off? I don't know. There's a good chip shop sitting there. I'm there, baby. I just say, God bless you, Everton Football Club. No finer place to bring this episode of our big Premier League previews to an end. Whoever you support, do not be afraid. Don't listen to our crap. Just remember my favourite. I've been reading a lot of Russian poets, classic Russian poets, not
your new ones.
Not those poems.
Not those awful
Those
new
poems
ones.
don't move me in the same way, strangely enough. Oh, Vladimir, you are so great. We loathed everything that you hate. Yeah, those ones don't quite move me in the same way as, like, for instance, Platonov, who wrote, From our ugliness will grow the soul of the world. So even the darkness, that's how it works, isn't it, Raw? Just embrace it.
Duck Bill Platinoff, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, God bless. One more quick note, one of the joys of this season. So first we can live out together on our new Men in Blazers Discord community. A couple of thousand fans there already of this show have joined to chat about everything: football, life, Russian poets, Premier League, books, their dogs. There's like a crazy great dog subsection. They're pretty well everything. It's the official community of this show and of all our talent on the MIB network, men's and women's. The Discord's open. Just think of it as a virtual pub community. We all lived on Twitter circa 2014. I hope our Discord channel will be that again. Come and join this place of community, of joy, of creativity, of singular passion for the game we love. Football's better with friends. I guess that's what I'm saying. The link to join the Discord is in our show notes, whether this is on YouTube or on podcast. Come be with us. And big thanks again to YETI for making Men in Blazers Football Holiday and this beautiful in-person communing, this taping possible. Raw, part 2 of the MIB Big Premier League season preview upcoming. It's just a sweatshirt change away. And there'll be top 4, bottom 3 predictions at the end of it. Oh.
But it's about the South, Rog, so it's not as good.
Yeah, I'm still not sure Nottingham's in the... It's kind of its own middle to me.
That's what we were driving... When we were driving back from France, you start to see the road signs after a while, and they say the Midlands.
Yeah.
And my son said to me, Daddy, what are the Midlands? And I think that's a great question.
God, where's Stoke?
North.
It is.
I can do this for every place in Britain.
It's so crazy to me. Stoke is, they're both nowhere to me. Stoke is the only place I've ever got out my car and seen from a large distance 4 8 to 9-year-old children in a pack slowly walking towards me because they knew there was nowhere I could run. 3 of them had a brick. 1 of them had a large plank menacingly over his shoulder. I just thought it's magnificent. It's its own special place.
They breed them young in Stoke. In Stoke, there is a split between half of them have Scouse accents and half of them have Birmingham accents. And I think in a place like that, you don't stand a chance.
God, some of them must have both and just end up fighting themselves. Come back for part 2. We'll break this all down. Big, big love and courage.